Okay, so here another daily vlog. Nofap day 133, and let me see. It's Sunday, the 28th of February, 2021, and man, Sundays always feel like the calm before the storm, which kind of it's sort of like how should I put it? It's sort of like you could compare that to, or it corresponds to, like the calm after the storm, which is Saturday. Whether the week went great or the week went terrible or it was kind of like meh. On Saturdays it kind of feels like, okay, cool, I got through another week. Like that. But then like on Sundays it's all this sort of like, okay, what's gonna happen this week? Is stuff from last week gonna like cause me problems this week? You know, because as I've talked about stuff at work where, and I know this is kind of like stuff that if you're working anywhere, you do kind of deal with it. I mean, it's sort of like general stuff. Dealing with members of your team who might be of more of a sensitive nature, who I don't know, will hold grudges about stuff or want to like tattletale on you to the boss. And if you got weekly one-on-ones, those can become things that you kind of dread, to put it lightly. Not kind of, but you totally dread, because you're sort of like wondering, okay, who tattled on me this time, and how bad is it this time? What's the damage, so to speak? And it's something that's on my mind, because sort of like last week, while I did do some extra work, to put it lightly, I put in about 17 extra hours, which was about almost like equivalent of 2 extra work days of work that I'm hoping the boss recognizes when we have the one-on-one. There was that, but then there were some cases where it's sort of the stuff that I know with certain coworkers, they really take that stuff super personally, and they like want to like file sort of an informal complaint about people if that's happening. Like, okay, like we had some communication issue where, and I did talk about this in the last video, but still bugging me, because we had a communication issue where like my build partner got switched while I was going to use the restroom, and the one I was supposed to be working with, she'd arrived late, so I had everything already like printed out and set up to go, and then she decided to just head into the lab and you know do things on her own. And then as I was communicating with her via Slack, she has her notifications off. She finally responds to me and says that, okay, I went in and did this, everything's done, blah, 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 and you're working with this other guy. And then, of course, I found this out as I'm walking back to my desk, and then the other guy's there, and he's all, like, ticked off, like, where were you? I was looking for you. And it was like, okay, like, I thought I was with the other person, but he's the kind of guy who will take that super personally and complain to the boss about it. And I just don't have patience for that kind of stuff. Especially since so much of this stuff is like, it's like we have this other person on the team who's like a senior technician who does all the scheduling, and she has a habit of like doing that kind of stuff where she changes up the schedule at the drop of a hat. Doesn't really notify anybody, just assumes that everybody is staring at the schedule as she's changing it, and that it won't cause any issues. And there's been stuff in the past where she's like misinterpreted some sort of almost like a uh, what do you call it, like a bottleneck in a manufacturing process. She's misinterpreted it as like the end of the world, and I gotta pull these other people off of their bills so they can go help the build that this guy's on. And then of course those people are ticked off because they're working on something that seems to be like higher priority or so, or maybe they were almost done with it, but then they had to drop it because this other technician was like, oh my god, you got to go over this lab and help these people out. And then it turns out that no, actually it wasn't that big of a deal. We had maybe 15 minutes downtime, get everything back up and running, and we're, three-fourths or, 80% of the way done. Like, you don't need to be here, you don't need to be yelling at us. And it's something that, I'm finally making a point to bring up. If, like, the boss asks the typical question, are you having any issues, blah, 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 I'll probably have to list off a couple of things. But, I also just sort of communicate this is not like me versus this other person. It's like stuff that's frustrating me or getting on my nerves, where it's stuff like that. But see, I'm always having this sort of thought in my mind, back of my mind, that if I make it seem like I'm having issues with anybody else on the team, it's not going to be like, oh, that maybe they need to change, or maybe we need to change our way of doing business or whatever. It's going to be like, well, the problem isn't them. The problem isn't the way the team does its business, but the problem is you, mister. And if that becomes the case, then it's kind of like, okay, this is a really toxic work environment, and I may just be on my way out, And this is not a case of me walking away from them, but the vice versa, them walking away from me. And then having to try and explain to some potential future employer when I'm really desperate for a job, like what happened at the last company. That's not something that's going to really help me. And these are the things that are on my mind right now. Today I got most of my studying done. I do have some of what they call additional lecture videos to watch, but I've done that. I've done the pre-lecture quizzes, so I really don't have anything else for the academic-wise for tomorrow that's due. I was going to finish up watching those videos, and I have like one problem left in the homework that's due on Wednesday. I got 2 of them done yesterday, so I got a bit of a head start on it. Third one's a little bit more involved. I'll probably put that down for doing tomorrow. Talking to my dad a bit last night. I was trying not to get into an argument with him because he's in this basically rehabilitation facility right now where they're trying to get him to recuperate, rest up, relax, not be stressed out. 3 square meals a day, gets to actually sleep for 7, 8, 10 hours a night. However long he can, rest, he gets to rest actually, not have people harping on him about this or that. But, you sort of realize there's things that, that are really causing all these problems in the family he's just not going to see. And, I tried to explain to him the reason that I got so angry like a week or 2 ago. You can tell I've had a lot on my mind. I can't even remember, okay, what exact date and time and all that. I have other things going on. But I tried to explain that there's so much the reason why I got so angry was because it was kind of like, obviously certain people in the family weren't handling their end of the bargain, so to speak, or were causing all this stress and strain that had led him to being in the hospital. And it was like, okay, I was getting pulled back into that. And I was just so ticked off at, my mom and my sister for doing what they've done, because I know how they view him and how they treat him. Even if my sister does try and take care of him or look after him or, even defend him to my mom, it all boils down to we got to keep the plow horse around. Can't let the plow horse die or, or become invalidated, because then we're screwed. And, even my sister trying to rope me into paying for the mortgage and all this sort of stuff, and I'm looking at you think I make that kind of money? You think I have that kind of money? But I tried to get that across to him, but it's really difficult, and I can just tell he's just worn out. I'll be talking with him in conversation. There's things that I'll be trying to describe something the food he had, and it's he really has this hard time of grasping and remembering. And it's just and this is a guy who for the longest time in my life he was the sharpest attack, on top of things, just had all the answers, could handle this and handle that, holding up the world, as a guy growing up, or boy growing into manhood. It's your father, assuming again, that, your parents are together and it's a relatively functional, situation there. Um, which I know, and this is probably one of the things that's so off, or so different about the world these days, in my opinion at least. And I know it's probably a controversial statement from the perspective of certain individuals or groups or demographics graphics or whatever, but um, most people don't have that kind of relationship with their father, it seems. Um, but at least in my experience growing up, your father is like your first hero. He's the model of masculinity, what a man's supposed to be and able to do, and what role he's supposed to play, and things of that nature. And it gives you that sort of picture. And when things get so bad that he is like, you know, laid up in the hospital, delirious, his mind's not as sharp and on point as he usually is, because he's just been so drained, irreversibly drained at that. It's just like, things are bad. And trying to get that sort of, understanding across to him as to why it impacted me so much. Because, like I said, like when things are so bad that that guy who's like the bedrock of the family is in the spot that he's in, it's like, it's really bad. And, it's something that like, that I seem to have understood. Maybe it had to be quote unquote beaten into me, so to speak. But, sort of, trying to explain to him like why I've been so ticked off about these things or frustrated or what have you. And try not to come off as all hoity-toity or self-absorbed, like, oh, I shouldn't have to be involved. Well, yeah, technically speaking, I shouldn't have to be, because certain other people should be handling their own, situation, their own responsibilities, their own weight, if you will. And repeatedly, it's been this case of like one half of the family all is dropping the ball, not handling their situation, screwing off, dicking around, and then the other half having to take on that extra weight at the same time being still held up to these extremely high standards of a performance, so to speak. The whole like burden of performance, always being way up there, but at the same time having to handle somebody else's weight, literally or figuratively speaking. But yeah, you know, the stuff that's on my mind, the stuff that's going on, and I want to call him again and talk to him, but at the same time, like, I kind of want to just leave him be, because in my opinion, what he just really, really needs right now is just to be able to go off somewhere and vegetate for, a week or a month, or even like 6 months or a year, just to recuperate, just to have a time in his life where he's not having to stress about other people and such. And like, one of the things I've tried to get across to him is that, like, Dad, like, unless things get so, world-endingly bad for me, I don't want you to be worrying about me, I want to be handling my own stuff. And, that's why I've been doing so much of what I've been doing, because I don't want to be that guy in his 30s who's expecting his parents to pay for his debts, support him and that sort of thing. We already have enough of that in the family, and we don't need more of that. And if I can even send him a couple $100 every so often, or even more than that, especially in the future, assuming I don't lose my job and I, make enough money and blah, 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 that would be sort of my way of contributing and helping. But, I gotta take care of myself first. I gotta make sure I don't become a burden onto folks. And, kind of get that point across to them, just don't worry about me. Now, how does this all relate to Nofap? People will always ask that question. They want to sort of treat Nofap like it's some panacea, and almost becomes like cultic or cultish, in certain extreme situations or cases. But the big thing is that if I don't handle all this kind of stuff, PMO becomes an increasingly alluring or appealing, sort of a thing to do. And it's something I've found repeatedly. Is like, when I'm handling my life well, I don't really think about PMOing. Heck, when I handle my life well, I don't think about listening to depressive music or tuning into like depressive material or getting depressive thoughts in my head, going into those negative thought loops. I don't think about getting into that. I don't have that draw to that because you know, hey, I'm handling life well and I'm feeling good about that. Why would I want to go do that? Why would I find that appealing? Um, and obviously sometimes it could be appealing if I'm just bored, and it could start off with fantasies or something like that. But reality is, if I'm handling my life well, I'm on my mission, I'm getting somewhere, and I don't feel like things are out of control, or that I'm dealing with somebody who's might backstab me, or you know inadvertently um, blather some stuff to the boss that oh, she's gonna pick up on and be so angry at me about, and I might get written up, or I might get let go, or fired, or whatever the case may be. Like, if I'm handling all that well and there's none of that stuff going down, I don't feel the need to PMO. I don't feel that desire. I don't feel drawn to that, because it's like, okay, I'm obviously coping with life well enough that I just don't need that. And that is so much of what I think is the key to success on Nofap, or so many other things in life. Like, figuring out how to cope with life, whatever it throws at you. And I guess you could say being reasonable in what you're expecting out of life and what you're pursuing, and what is really important, what you should be expending your energy and your time on, as opposed to just wasting it. If you're doing that, PMO is not going to be on your mind in all likelihood. It might be there in the back because you know what it is, and maybe there's that sort of that desire for physical intimacy still there, and because of being exposed to that sort of stuff, that that's a way to simulate it, but you don't have that sort of like itching, burning draw to it. You're not pulled to it because life is going okay, you're making progress, you're getting somewhere, you're doing all this stuff with your time. Why would you want to? There's no sort of basis for rationalization. So that's what I'm doing. I think the rest of the day, I was thinking of doing some more laundry, but unless I go through what I've already washed and dried, and I don't find enough to whatever wear or something, I might do that. But most likely at this point, I'm just gonna sort of wind down, get things set up for tomorrow. I would like to be there by 6:30. I like to start the week strong, and I guess I'll have to be prepared for people making repeated informal complaints about me, if that's really what they're going to be super sensitive about, because some people are like that. And yeah, so just winding down, planning out the rest of the week as best I can, taking into consideration different stuff that could go wrong. One thought I've had on my mind is about possibly going back to the old job. I did not get fired, but when I left, my numbers, so to speak, weren't all that great. They were kind of on the downswing. I've been kind of burning out with stuff and was sort of not feeling it, but it's always a possibility, I suppose. And it's kind of like in retrospect, I've looked back and there's things about it that I miss. Not just the work that we were doing, but the people. People I could joke around with, and at the new job, it's always a sort of sense of like, I had to be just serious about things, because you never know who you're gonna offend, and it just seems like they're all like that, and it's this whole sort of, I don't know, like the girls at work will, for instance, they'll make dumb comments that if you looked at the all the workplace harassment training you're supposed to get when you start there, it's stuff that if I said that kind of stuff, like it would be, I would get written up for some HR worthy comment, something that would be taken as racist or sexist, or stuff of that nature. Or there's just things that they'll say and do that just annoy me, because it's stuff that annoys me about about that demographic. And there's always something like, at the last job, like I just would not like to have depressive, sad music playing in the workplace, and it was kind of a running gag we had where, sometimes my coworkers kind of give me a hard time. They bust my chops in a bit, like putting on a sad song, and I'm looking over like, oh, is he gonna cry or whatever? And I'd be like, I give them some sort of response like, man, turn that off. Put on some money making music. Put on some, we need to get the energy up in the lab sort of music, and we'd all laugh about it. But like over here, I haven't really gotten to that extent because I feel like I gotta keep like the majority of stuff close to my chest, so to speak. But sometimes I just want to put on the most depressing music ever. I'm just like internally, I'm just like, oh god. So I may be taking my headphones in with me and putting that stuff on because I put together a work playlist and I just put that on and just zonk out when I'm doing repetitive work that doesn't require me to be like watching out where my hands are going, so there's some machine doesn't chop off my hand. If it's safe work like that where I'm just putting labels on, like I'll just do that and I'll zonk out because that's something that is kind of on my nerves. I get on my nerves with that, and the fact that I'm dealing with folks I feel who are super super sensitive or just like easily annoyed by little things. Like my mentality. As much as I complain about stuff like this on my video when I'm on my channel on these videos that I make, when I go to work, I try to look at it from this perspective of, okay, I'm trying to knock down these hours so I can get this money, and I'm not gonna, when I'm there, I'm gonna try to not focus on how much this coworker ticks me off or annoys me or yada yada. I'm just gonna try to get the work done, and I've had a couple of times there where I was getting really frustrated with someone because she was just being like, that one girl in particular, like she was being like kind of flippant with me, um, mouthing off and all this sort of stuff, and I was just kind of like, what? Like, what was that you said? I was part of me was obviously ticked off, but the other part of me was kind of like, okay, dude, like, did she really say that, or what did she say? Like if I'm a little more assertive, maybe she'll explain what she meant, and then I won't, there won't be some sort of altercation or something like that. There have been times like that, but for the most part, I've tried to keep this mentality. I'm just trying to knock down these hours, get that money, pay off these debts, and get the heck out of here, And along the way, complete these courses, because honestly, like this, it's kind of like this. Like I had a coworker at the last job. He said like, and this was back when I was starting off, and I was kind of having some issues with just the way the work was going. And he was kind of like, look, this job is not a forever job. If you do have some better opportunity that comes along, go for it. And, I kind of got it into my mind of, okay, it's not a forever job. Obviously, I'm not trying to be a technician for the rest of my life, I'm trying to like take things to the next level, which is why I'm doing these courses, which is why I'm, paying off with all these things, all this stuff that I'm doing is because I'm not planning on being at this stage forever. This is just a means to an end. However, having coworkers who seem to take every little thing personal and are so like drowned in this moment where they're at, where it's like this is the end all be all, and it's just like, obviously like some of them are interviewing for other positions in the company. It's like if you weren't interviewing for that, then okay, I can understand that because this would be the end all be all. But if you're interviewing for other positions, you're obviously understanding that this is not forever, So stop taking things so friggin' personally and wanting to file complaints and be, passive aggressive and smarmy and all that. But as long as it doesn't lead to me losing my job, I'll be all right. Ultimately, I'll be all right. So, again, I know this is probably, maybe this is annoying or frustrating to some folks, but, these vlogs have become less and less about focusing on the secret or the effect of Nofap and more about, a day in the life of me handling my life, because PMO will not be an issue if my life is going all right. I don't see the desire for PMO, and I've had this experience in the past where when I felt like I was making progress, certain things that bugged me did not bug me. The one-eyed girl, there were times where stuff with her just did not bug me. I was zen about stuff because I was making progress in other areas of life. There was no reflection of my value from that sort of stuff at that moment. Um, with other things in life. If my life is going swimmingly, I'm making progress, I'm knocking stuff down, I'm getting to a point where I could go and pursue the new goals and hopes and dreams that I have at this point. Certain things just don't bug me when things are going smooth, when I'm handling my life well. I can even factor stuff like hair loss. That stuff won't bug me when the rest of my life is going well, or maybe I'm losing weight healthily, or I'm making, good money, I'm paying off these debts, I'm seeing things, progress. So, ultimately, like, if you're on Nofap, maybe my takeaway point for Nofap to kind of actually, sum it all up, as long as you're learning to handle and cope with life well, PMO is not going to be an issue. And that's sort of the big takeaway. Like, it's not really about, sort of like, the secret of Nofap is not Nofap. It's learning how to handle life better, to cope with life better. Now, once you figure that out and you cultivate it, and something you have to continue to cultivate, you can't sort of drop the ball anywhere along that. You have to, like, keep it up continually. It's kind of like with these classes I've been taking. Just because I did better or did well last semester doesn't mean I can slack off this semester. It's not like it's just going to carry over. It's something that has to be continually built up and cultivated over time. And as long as you're maintaining that, kind of like a well-oiled, well-maintained machine, you'll get those results. But, most of it is behavior. Most of it is not head knowledge. Once you figure out the head knowledge, the rest of it is, just making it a habit, making success, making excellence a habit. And that's what I'm struggling to do, or striving to do. That's the end goal for me in a sort of, broader, nebulous sense. But in that concrete sense, yeah, I'm preparing for this next week and hoping that my anxieties do not ring true. So, anyways, that's it for me. It's day 133 of Nofap, and probably gotta clean out my car in my room a bit and just, get ready to wind down for the rest of the day and hopefully be in bed by 8:30. So I can be up early enough and yada yada. So anyways, I'll see you folks around. And thanks to those who have continued to follow my channel and have not unsubscribed and continue to provide moral support to me. So I really appreciate that. It's mostly just like my soapbox at this point. But I will see you folks around for the umpteenth time I said that, and thanks for watching, and bye-bye.